Welcome back to Straight Talk with Billy Kay. I'm Billy Keyserling, the man who's honored to be mayor of the city of Beaufort. The purpose of Straight Talk is to help me share with you some of the things that are happening in the city, like I do on my webpage and on my newsletter, which you can find at www.mayorbilly.com. Today I have with me as my guest my colleague, Council Member Mike McFee, and we're going to talk about the season for tourism funding. Every year there's a very complicated formula that I'm going to rely on Mike to explain, through which dollars that are collected both from hospitality fees and from accommodations taxes filter down through different organizations, one of which is the city, to invest in bringing marketing tourists from outside of the 50-mile radius. Every year for the past, well, ever since I've been on City Council, the City Council has always been concerned that it's the same organizations, the same venues, and that there's not enough collaboration among organizations. So this year we're going to be making some changes. But before we talk about the changes, I'm going to ask Mike if he, having been chairman or president of the Chamber of Commerce for 2 terms, and having done just about every other kind of volunteer job you can do in Beaufort, Mike knows these laws backwards and forwards. So Mike, tell us a little bit about what we call TDAC.
Thanks, Billy. I appreciate it. TDAC is actually the Tourism Development Advisory Commission, and it is a funding source that we receive from accommodations and prepared foods in the city of Beaufort. And a percentage comes down to us as a return on the investment that those visiting the area or utilizing our restaurants and our hotels give back into our community. And that money filters down through our DMO, which is the designated marketing organization, which is the Greater Beaufort Chamber of Commerce for the city of Beaufort, town of Port Royal, and Beaufort County. And we actually work with them in cooperation with in giving the money back out to the organizations that bring in visitors to our area, and those sources come in. Now the DMO receives a portion of it on top, from the top, and then the rest of it comes back to the TDAC for about $170,000 to about $200,000 annually, comes back into our marketplace, and then it's given out to the organizations. And that's what you were alluding to with reference to that grant, the grant monies that are available to those organizations.
Rather than grants, I think the mode of City Council in trying to make these changes is to try to encourage the private sector, the different organizations who apply, again, to be more innovative, to learn to be self-sufficient. We're willing to help them get started, but do we continually fund them? We're talking about a very little amount of money, and we're talking about a lot of organizations that do a great deal to help us. In City Council, you're on the Redevelopment Commission as the representative for City Council too. We've actually talked about tourism as a tool for city building. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
It is. We recognize, one of the themes or the goals of the Redevelopment Commission is to diversify our income as far as the county, as far as the city is concerned. And cooperatively, we've worked with the county and the town and so forth, and regionalizing and doing a lot of work together on that point. And but from the standpoint of actually, as an economic driver, the Redevelopment Commission recognizes the importance of tourism and building upon that from the visitor standpoint. The issue, of course, back to the collaboration and the cooperation, is the fact that we really need to maximize that very small amount of money that we receive. So dealing with less than $200,000 and dealing with a number of agencies and organizations that are very interested in getting that money to be able to push forward their marketing efforts, we recognize that there was an importance cooperatively to put efforts together, and even in cooperation with the county and their TDAC funding sources, to maybe look at a better way to get better bang for our buck in that.
Well, it's in many ways, and I don't mean this to sound wrong, but a lot of organizations have found that this is more like an entitlement.
Sure.
And very often they'll apply for $20,000, that they get $5,000. And some members of council, Councilman Sutton, who puts his pen to the budget very carefully, says if they need 20 to do the job and we only give them 5, why are we giving them 5? Because they can't do the job. So what happens to the dollars? It's not a lot of dollars. There's a lot of need, but if one looks, you know, when we had our workshop and talked about marketing, economic development, and tourism and this concept of city building, it's not only marketing people to come and take a carriage ride, or to come and have a meal, or to come and spend a night in one of our hotels, or to come to a festival. It's inviting the kinds of people who are likely to maybe think about buying a home here, opening a business here, helping to grow a business here, or making an investment in the community. So we try to look at it as a bigger scope, because we're not Charleston, and we're not Savannah, and we're not New York City. There's a scale to Beaufort. We can only support so many tourists.
You're absolutely right. You know, there's such an effort afoot to look at, without using the term quality tourist or quality visitor to the city, because it's not a reference from an economic standpoint necessarily. It's just the motivations for people that are really interested in coming to a community and potentially relocating their homes, their businesses, their interests into a community like Beaufort. So we see it as being a very large, a very big potential, if you will, and it is truly the money that the little amount of money that we get from TDAC we consider to be a true investment back into the community to draw those people back in. And by having those cooperative efforts and the collaboration between all the organizations and the regional entities as far as our governments are concerned, it gives us a great potential to maximize those dollars, to really emphasizing, be able to draw in a lot more by working together and creating that. And the summit was a great example of that. When we had the summit and we had so many talented people that really came out of the woodwork. I mean, I know you were surprised by the number of people we got showing up on that morning to really talk about marketing.
This was a summit that the City Council with the Redevelopment Commission sponsored, where in addition to the people who typically come before us with programs, we asked everybody. We realized that the broker for real estate on Kalawasi and Dawtaw have the same interest as Plums or Saltus or the Best Western or the Hampton Inn or the Holiday Inn. Sure. Too often, because the law, my mother actually in the legislature wrote it, and it's, if she were here today, she would agree that maybe it's a little too complicated. But one of the ways you measure is heads and beds. But heads and beds is a means to an end. It's not the end. And I think we've had to break down the silo and the kind of thinking that it's not just about filling up the hotel rooms. It's filling up the hotel rooms with the right kind of people who are going to experience or
stay 2 or 3 days rather than just a night. You know, experience 2 or 3 restaurants and take a tour and go out to Penn Center and recognize the cultural advantages that we have here, making it an inclusive, comprehensive visit rather than just having a one-nighter, if you will, you know, coming in and so I think that you're absolutely right. And the summit brought out, we wanted to bring many of the businesses that are affected, not just directly by tourism as touring companies or otherwise, but all the businesses.
We had maybe 75 people in that room, and what surprised me the most is that more than half of them didn't know at least 2 or 3 other people.
Exactly.
Yet they're all about the same thing, and that is how
do we
grow our community using tourism as a tool for economic development, a tool for promoting the city, a tool for sharing what is so unique about our hometown.
And by having those different people and then them each recognizing, you know, we're doing these marketing dollars, we're doing this towards that, if we could do something collectively, we could send the same message, and that brought us back to the branding issue and actually, you know, recognizing what we could do from the standpoint of making it look like
Mike,
a Beaufort.
we've got about a minute left before we take a break. Could you very briefly run through, if you can remember, who we granted to last year and the kinds of money?
I think from the Chamber of Commerce always is an additional request, as well as Main Street Beaufort. Right. We always usually, I mean, we have for many, many years supported their programs. The Black Chamber of Commerce, several of these organizations are also doing guidebooks, which we've asked and have very pointedly said that we don't want duplications of guidebooks and so forth. The University of South Carolina with their Performing Arts Center, who bring in great shows into the area.
Well, that gives us a flavor of the kinds of grants, but typically they were to single organizations around single programs or single events. We'll be back in a few minutes, and we're going to talk about how we hope to do it, change it this year from the way we did it last year. Thank you. We'll be back. Welcome back to Straight Talk with Billy Kay. I'm Billy Keyserling, and I have with me today, for those who are just joining us, Mike McFee, council member, city council member Mike McFee, former chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, and as I said earlier, the president and chairman of a lot of organizations in Beaufort. We've been talking about tourism management and a process where dollars run through the state, dollars collected for hospitality fees, prepared food, and accommodations tax, are filtered back down to the communities to invest in tourism. And we closed the last segment really talking about the old way of doing things, where we fund 3 different magazines, 3 different tourism magazines, and are questioning whether we should. And we've charged the committee, which is a committee of volunteers that basically come from within the industry, with making recommendations to the city council how we invest somewhere between $170,000 and $200,000 a year. And the fact that council has not been happy with ourselves because we haven't been very creative, and how we're trying to do with tourism, as we've done with other things, is get outside the box, figure out how to stretch those dollars.
Absolutely.
Mike, you might want to share with us, the committee has come up with a new program. We mentioned earlier a summit where they brought together a lot of people.
Exactly.
So tell us a little bit about where you think it's going this year.
Well, the idea, the direction that we're trying to take now is, instead of doing specifically the kinds of things that we did in the past, we would sit down with a committee and we would look at all the people that had put in applications to receive part of the money. We now are going to bring a very large, broad sweep of local agencies and organizations together and ask them to come meet with us and discuss what their needs are, and even more so than the 40 applications in some years that we've gotten from organizations that have a need or potentially would qualify for the TDAC money. And remember, the funding has to be used for advertising, marketing outside the 50-mile radius of the city. So whenever we look at an organization or an event coming to us, the intent is that it has to be marketing outside that regional area, because that is the law that your mom helped set down from the House standpoint in the state statute. This idea is to bring the people together, a much larger group, truly look at what they have to offer, what they want to bring in, and then collectively, by having them together, look at where there may be common areas that they could make marketing partnerships, and actually come together and have them team up with their groups, their organizations, so that they could maximize that investment, maximize the impact that advertising would do. And that meeting will be very soon, and it will include, as I said, a much broader
right, and
number of people.
and judging, there's going to be a point system.
Absolutely.
Where they look at the framework, because one of the concerns is if you go to the visitor centers out on the interstate, you will see something from the Black Chamber of Commerce, something from the Low Country Regional Tourism Commission, and the Beaufort Chamber Guide.
And Hilton Head.
And Hilton Head. But you'd never think of them as all necessarily being in the same place, because they don't even share a logo.
Right.
So we've asked the Chamber to hone in as the designated marketing organization and give some parameters. And I think the parameters are going to be around the word enrich. And those who stay within the parameters of enrichment, Beaufort's a place to enrich your life, to enrich your culture, to enrich your appetite for different kinds of foods, enrich yourself with history, with nature, with what have you. Those who stay within that will get a certain number of points. But even more importantly than that, if 3 or 4 organizations work together so that they're collaterally marketing. In our next show, we're going to actually look at 2 organizations. I'm going to have on Ron Tucker from the Beaufort International Film Festival and Tim Johnston from Short Story USA. Because bringing tourism to Beaufort is not just about the Water Festival. The Water Festival is important.
Absolutely.
It's not just about the Gullah Festival. The Gullah Festival is important. It's not just about the Shrimp Festival, the Taste of Beaufort. It's not about events. It's about a collection and an experience, which is one of enrichment. So if you had Short Story, for an example, Short Story USA, The Film Festival, the Center for the Arts Film Festival, and Artworks, for example, build a team where they build a unified arts calendar, and they share each other's email lists, and they blast out once a month to 50,000 people the cultural experiences here. I mean, if you're going to do a flyer, if you're going to do an email, why not at the bottom of it name your partners so that they get a free ride with you and they give you a free ride.
And each of the individual organizations then, in part of their individual marketing packages, collectively share that partnership so that when they're sending out notices to their memberships and to the organizations that may be partners with them, that shared partnership is shared across those. And by today's electronic social media and everything that we have available to us, it's a great opportunity to really maximize, further push that.
And then they may throw in a restaurant or two who want to partner with them and get that private investment matching the public investment, or a hotel or two.
Like the Historic Beaufort Foundation's done a great job with the lectures and the dinner series this year. It's a great example of that by utilizing their partnerships and pushing so that both organizations are really marketing for the same goal.
I just thought of one as the association. You're a realtor, but you're not here as a realtor. But if the realtors got together with the St. Helena's Tour of Homes or Historic Beaufort Tour of Homes and filled in that tour was a tour of contemporary homes, the way people live actually in Beaufort.
Sort of a caravan of the new homes, things that were available for sale.
We could weave it together. Again,
Absolutely.
It's about leveraging, taking that 170, see if we can get $1 million worth of coverage with these different things.
Exponentially, by making that investment and doing the kinds of reinvestment in that same dollar amount, you can make it fivefold the value of what you're doing easily, which is why the county is very much in cooperation with our thoughts in trying to maximize that, because they even have a larger pool, a larger pot of money to pull from.
And I'm hoping that we can set a model for them, because looking at their investment, they've already done their investment. It's a lot more the same. But it's a tough question. You got 3 visitors guides.
No question.
Low Country Tourism Commission, we're a part of marketing the whole Low Country. Mm-hmm. The Black Chamber of Commerce takes a cultural point of view, and they include Hilton Head and Bluffton. And then we have our own chamber. Somehow, there's got to be a way that we can weave those 3 together and not use such a big portion of that money to do 3 publications.
Yeah, it's been our mantra as far as the city is concerned. That's one of the things that we see as being able to maximize the investment to make the biggest impact. So we think that's a great direction to go, and fortunately our partners are on board with it as well.
I guess the best thing of all is we got such a great place to market.
Yeah, we do.
We've got the
Makes
restaurants,
it easy.
We've got the hotels, we've got the waterfront, we've got the kayaking, but integrating to create a Beaufort experience. One of my pet ideas is to basically be a wellness destination. And that would be to get the hospital and the restaurants and the bed and breakfast and the short-term rentals to put together a week-long package.
And with the rail trail just opening next week,
that's exactly
perfect,
right. But where people could actually come to Beaufort for a week, have restaurants to eat healthy meals at restaurants, take cooking lessons, learn nutrition at the hospital, work with the technical college. Again, but it requires, and change is very difficult. We've spent 4 years together on council. You've had a double whammy in that you've been on the Redevelopment Commission, and we are making changes.
We are.
We are doing things differently.
And it's being well received. I mean, we really are. I mean, change is always, there's some resistance always, but we really feel like we're moving in that direction.
The good news is that we get away from the labels liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat in our nonpartisan system. And we're really working on what I guess would be a conservative notion, but I don't think of it as conservative. And this is, how do we best invest? How do we best shepherd the hard dollars that the taxpayers pay for us? And tourism is an important piece of our economy.
No doubt.
The Commerce Park is an important piece of our economy. The housing industry is an important piece of our economy. How do we break down those silos and get the realtors working with the restaurants, working with Historic Beaufort, working with...
Absolutely.
I think we're onto something this year, and it'll be a learning process. It won't be as smooth. But I know that we'll basically be inviting somewhere in the neighborhood of 75 to 100 organizations to apply, encouraging them to work together.
Right.
that's how our city's operating on 20% less money.
Absolutely.
With a higher level of service. We got a few more minutes, Mike. For those who may want to contact you directly, how do they find you?
My email address is mikemcfee@hargray.com, or you can call me directly on my cell phone, which is area code 843-321-0556. I'm always available.
Thank you for being with us, Mike.
Thanks so
and
much.
Hopefully
Appreciate it.
we'll
My
have
pleasure.
a better tourism season this year because we've rolled up our sleeves, taken the risk of trying to do something differently.
Sounds
Thank
great.
you for being with us. Next show we'll have, as I said, Ron Tucker, the director and the founder of the Beaufort International Film Festival, and Tim Johnston, the founders of two organizations, Short Story USA. Thank you for being with us.